Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Red Tinted Glasses podcast. Back again with Andy Skinner. Skinner, delighted to get you back on the podcast. 2 appearances in very quick succession.
2 in a row, aye. Must have been all right the other day. I'm not sure. I was a bit rusty, shall we say? But no, pleasure to be back on.
No,
And
absolute
it
pleasure
helps that I was
have.
at the game this time around as well.
It will have done, yes, but no, absolute pleasure to get you back on and picking up plenty of freelance podcasting work as well. I just want to address something as well before we get into the crux of obviously Thursday night and previewing upcoming as well. There might be a possibility of some more regular appearances for Andy on the show. Unfortunately, Phil will be taking a bit of a break from the podcast. Those that have tuned into the show on a regular occurrence will have known there's been some personal circumstances with Phil, and unfortunately those have changed over the last few days, and our thoughts and I know Callum as well, who's not on the podcast tonight, are firmly with Phil and his family at this time, and that seat is there for Phil when he's ready to come back. And look, family's the most important thing at this moment in time. So thinking of you, Phil, stay strong, and yeah, wishing you and your family all the best at this time.
Here.
So moving away from that very sad news, we'll move to the Dons game on Thursday night, Skinner, and speak about the starting lineup. And I suppose the big talking point, Shayden Morris omitted from the matchday squad, assuming with injury. Topi Keskinen coming in that only one change, but what looked a decent Dons side going into the game.
Yeah, I was quite content with what had been selected. Yeah, it was a good sign that, I suppose, we spoke last week about momentum being generated to some extent with the win at Capello, and the fact that Jimmy Tillene saw enough in the guys that got the nod on that occasion to sort of let them carry that into Thursday night, with the exception obviously of Shayden Morris. I guess when it comes to the second leg, we'll get an update regards him tomorrow, I would think. But no, I thought it was a front foot kind of start, really, in the game, and as I say, there was a lot of kind of dynamism in the team. There were decent legs in from the start, and as I say, I was quite content, and I suppose another slight not a question mark over it, but surprising one to an extent was the omission of Graeme Shinnie from the lineup. But I know he'd obviously started on the bench at Capello, but it was interesting to see him go without the captain from the start, and obviously Nielsen got the nod in the midfield. But yeah, I mean the thing is, with the 5 subs rule, the chances are most of the guys will have the chance to make an impact in the game, and well, I suppose we'll come on to it later, but we certainly saw that as the second half went on.
Boy, did we need it. Yeah, I think you're right. And 2 games in a row now, Graham's not started. Is that maybe an angle of what's to come? I think maybe again Thursday will be interesting based on obviously what we saw at the end of the game. As you said, we will come on to it. Pre-match, of course, that full stadium tifo, excellent job by the display team, Fans Project, also the Ultras as well with their display in the Red Shed. Something so special about seeing the whole stadium involved, and of course there was the fireworks as well, inspiring the players, because I thought we made a strong start, albeit maybe not testing their keeper too much, but we were certainly not shy of creating opportunities.
Definitely not. I was encouraged, really. Again, we spoke about trying to impose ourselves on the game and get the attacking players right involved in it from an early stage, and I was really encouraged with the way that we started. I thought Milanovic was excellent in the opening stages, perhaps drifted out of the game as it went on, but yeah, you're right. I mean, my big frustration, I suppose, in regards to the first half was just how little we did manage to test their goalkeeper. Obviously, remember Sir Gio last week remarking on the fact he's highly rated and been on the fringes of the Romanian national team, but we didn't really ask enough questions. And to be honest, you could say somewhat
Neither did they.
that was the case throughout the whole night. No, absolutely. Mitov wasn't too busy either, but yeah, clearly the start on the front foot was good. We just needed to be a little bit neater in the final third in regards to converting some of that nice play into genuine goal scoring threat.
Yeah, and a lot will be made of. I think Tope had the chance at the end of the first half, which he ballooned very high over the bar. I'm not sure if it was Milanovic himself that again cuts inside well from the right, and
Aye, the mazy
similar.
run, yeah.
Yeah, similar to what we've seen in games this season. He doesn't take on the shot as much as I was maybe hoping he
Yeah.
would. And Palaversa had a low drive from distance, but of course, again, that man, Kusini Yengi, where a lot of question marks have been made around his performance so far, failed to get on the end of a ball in from Ante Palaversa. From my seat in the red shed, it's hard to tell how close it was. I've not watched the highlights back.
No.
Again, some talk around he's probably gone with the wrong foot. You sit in the main stand. Do you think he could have or should have done better with those chances first half?
That one in particular, I had the same initial instinct as you, and I haven't. I've seen like the major highlights back, but I don't think that was included in them.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it did look like one. Pardon me, that he could have profited from if he'd been, just a yard or two further on. But maybe he was holding his line with the back line. You'd have to see it back, but again, I didn't really get the sense that he was really sniffing out many big chances as such. From it's the two home games that I've really seen so far, and Hearts at Tynecastle, and he has had chances, particularly at Tynecastle, but I don't think he's possesses the the predatory instincts that you would see in a penalty box striker as such. But
I
I suppose
do think as well for he didn't really kind of get himself into the right areas
no,
as such. I do think he was harshly penalised on the edge of the box. I think we could sit here and probably do our own podcast on the refereeing performance on Thursday night as well. But there was a chance that Esther Sokla had. We're obviously going to come on to him in a bit more detail, but where he kind of sclaffed a volley off his shin into the keeper's hands at 2-0. I might have even been at 2-1, but I thought if that was Yengi sclaffing that chance, the stadium wouldn't have reacted in the same way that with Esther missing it. So, again, another game goes by without him scoring. I know, yes, he did score just 2 games ago against Morton, but again, with the greatest respect to Morton, it's higher opposition. Of course, Lazetic still wasn't included in the squad for this game, so our options up front are Esther and Kusini. So we'll maybe discuss that in a bit more depth in terms of looking towards Thursday. But for as much as we didn't test their keeper, Fcsb didn't really test Dimitar Mitov, but the biggest difference, I guess, was how clinical they were when their first opportunity came about. And Graham Shinney spoke about, he called it team mistakes, quickly correcting himself after individual mistakes, but just shows when you certainly play in the Europa League, Conference League, I think will probably be just as much the same if that's where we end up. You can't make mistakes at this level and go unpunished like you can domestically.
No, definitely, yeah. Just it looked like a lapse in communication, concentration. Call it what you want, but it was two guys going for the same ball, and it was a straightforward enough ball to deal with.
Yeah.
And clearly, Fcsb landed in a good pocket of space, which opened the pitch right up for the pass on to Berligia, I think, was it? Or,
I'm glad you said. I was going to call him the number 9.
Number 9, yeah. I mean, I suppose it forms part of what my general mood is going into the second leg, but from the glimpses of attacking threat that we did see from Fcsb, I do fear to some extent that they've got another gear to, or they've got more to offer, more to show perhaps when we go over there. I mean, I'm not saying the task is insurmountable. Sorry.
Yeah.
And we'll obviously come on to the second leg later, but you know, it was a really slick piece of play and finishing.
Yeah.
And
I think they've
against
more
the run
than
of play
showed
as
their
well.
quality.
Yeah. So
In terms of
yeah,
then
obviously.
in terms of then the mistake, as you said, two players going for the same ball, Dorrington caught out of position, Jensen high up the pitch, maybe a little bit ball watching, not watching the man. I think probably he's the least to blame in the
Yeah.
goal. Where do you apportion the majority, if you want to call it, of blame on that first goal?
You would try and sort of look to the source in terms of like the guy that's furthest back that can see the whole thing unfolding. And I suppose Jack Milne, just with the height of him, you know, he does have those ball-winning instincts, and that's a good thing. You know, that'll be really invaluable, particularly in the Scottish Premiership. You'd always want to see your centre half going up and trying to, you know, win a header. But I don't know. Obviously, it's difficult to know without knowing what the process of the communication was between the two. Whether Malloy hasn't, you know, been assertive enough, and that's made Milne think, "Oh, I've got to get over here and win this." And yeah, it's difficult to really know, but certainly in some form, it's between the two of them, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to sit on the fence as much as me. I'll apportion the majority of the blame to Jack Milne. I don't think he needs to go out there and deal with the ball. It's Gavin Malloy's header to win. If Gavin doesn't win the header, which he obviously goes on not to, and where the ball gets knocked down, that's the space vacated by Jack, who's gone over to assist. Alfie's kind of dawdling is probably the word I would use. He probably expects his teammates to win the ball and doesn't expect either of them to lose it, and then is caught out by that quick play for the number 9 getting caught in behind. Jensen also probably in the same respect. I thought Alfie Dorrington looked, again, dawdling, dozy at times in that first half.
Yeah.
Jack Milne to an extent as well. But I guess you can caveat with the fact that that was both of their centre backs' first European experience. You know, yes, potentially still getting to know each other's game, but at that level, they are only going to learn from it. It's just unfortunate that the mistakes across the board on Thursday have cost us 2 goals.
Yeah. I mean, from what we have seen, they both definitely have, you know, the characteristics and the attributes that, you know, look like being, you know, really competent centre half options for us. I suppose just the fact that both of them are still very young means that you probably will get mistakes coming from time to time. You know, obviously we saw Canuster come on at half time as well, which you know, was encouraging to see because, you know, from what I've seen, he's one of our best centre half options.
Yeah.
But clearly, you know, on the night, you know, he made a mistake quite early on after coming on as well. But no, it's nice to see a little bit of competition there again because, you know, as we touched on last week, at one point we did start to look a little bit short in that area.
And yeah, I think, you know, you're right. You know, mistakes will be made. And I think at this level, as we've said, they'll go punished. But at the Scottish Premiership, probably have the time and space to recover that. The other big talking point, I suppose, from the first half was the red card that Fcsb received. At the time, at the game, were you surprised the referee brandished a red card, or based on his performance, maybe not so?
Aye, yeah, maybe the longer the night went on, it probably made a bit of sense. I mean, he had a good view of it, and you can't question that. But I was surprised. I didn't see anything, you know, I didn't see much appeal for it at the time, and I didn't, you know, there wasn't an outcry for it before the red card came out. I think there was a collective sort of response of surprise, you know, across the whole stadium. I mean, it was obviously it was good from our point of view, but yeah, no, I was surprised to see it.
I think as well, once the referee gives the red card, it's probably difficult for VAR to overturn it as a
Yeah.
clear and obvious mistake. The only thing that I thought why the referee went to his top pocket was it looked potentially like a scissor action from what I can
Aye.
recall feeling at the game.
Maybe quite
But
high, yeah.
yeah, I can certainly see why the referees produced a red card, but I think, yeah, once the red card's produced, it's probably very hard for VAR to overturn. And as you said, it should have benefited us maybe more than it ended up doing.
Hmm.
Do you think we struggled at times to break down what was a very low block that FCSB put up, and obviously then once they go 1-0 up, they're quite
Hmm.
happy to defend that lead?
Yeah, an equal measure of what I would say though is, fair play, and you have to credit FCSB for. I know obviously we ended up getting 2 goals, but for the most part, it was actually a really strong defensive performance from them. I thought,
Mm,
they cut out an awful lot of cross balls that came in, and they really marshaled the pressure that was coming their way very well. And as I say, limited goal mouth action in terms of stuff that was going to test their keeper.
mhm,
Uh, their centre halves and their kind of midfield unit that was protecting them functioned well,
mm.
given the numerical disadvantage. But yeah, it probably it took Aberdeen time to really learn how to hurt them. I think to begin with, we did look a little bit. I wouldn't say off it, but just devoid of that killer touch that was really going to cut them open and cause them problems and ask questions of them. We just didn't see enough of that for all the play that we had. But it was good to see. It was almost like we learned as the game went on, and we spotted vulnerabilities and weaknesses increasingly as the game went on, and that
Mm.
in itself bodes really well for the second leg.
It does, and I want to just come back to something that you said there about the kind of final product and kind of the failure, if you want to call it, for large parts of the night, maybe to create clear cut opportunities. A lot has been kind of discussed about Toby Keskin, and I rated him
Yeah,
highly in the 4-4-2 preview. He had a successful under 21 campaign, albeit the Finnish team went out of the group stages, but his end product has got to be one of the most frustrating factors about this
yeah,
Aberdeen team currently, because he sometimes looks devoid of ideas, or is finishing for his, he won goal of the season last year for the goal at Dundee, but yeah, it's just frustrating at
it is a
times.
frustrating one. Yeah, yeah. No, I share your frustration massively. Because I don't want to be too critical on him because it was well documented just how much football he played last season. He just with the structure of the Scandinavian seasons.
Hmm.
I think it's the same across all the Scandinavian leagues. Am I right in
Yeah.
saying the summer? Um, so he didn't really have a break for was it 18 months or so really,
Hmm.
plus a lot of international action as well, and settling into a new country, a new league. It's not easy for a young player, and obviously there's a development aspect to that as well, where Aberdeen are hoping that they can fine tune him into a really strong winger, but the fruits of that might not be seen for a couple of years into his stay.
Hmm.
But um, yeah, I do think we could do with better from him at times. Just yeah, as you say, you put it really well. Just um, the lack of end product at times. His numbers could be better. Given the finances that were spent on him, maybe that's a pressure that he's dealing with as well. That might have made it slightly more difficult in certainly the early stages when that burden of expectations there
Hmm.
as a young player. But yeah, no, I do certainly hope that there's much more to come from Topi based on what we've seen to this point.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say about the maybe expectation, as you say, with the price tag alone. And I certainly felt in that first half the success that we were having in the wide areas, let alone as the game went on in the second half. It felt that Shaden Morris was a huge miss. I don't know
Yeah.
if you felt the same.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Shaden, when he comes on, or if he starts, you're always, pretty sure that he's going to make an impact, and influence the game. So it was one that we could have done with on the night, and it would have been something that we didn't really have on the night in terms of what FCSB would have been coming up against.
Mm-hmm.
There would have been an extra dimension there to our threat that, um, could have made it even more difficult for them to hold out for, well, as it was the victory that they were hoping
Yeah.
for. But even a point, Morris could have been the difference there, just with the pace
Mm-hmm.
that he possesses, and stretching a team that's already down to 10 men would
Yeah.
be a great game plan. But I still felt as if we had enough within us
Mm-hmm.
to fashion opportunities. I mean, how did you see it from from an attacking player point of view?
I think, yeah, we should have had enough about us, and obviously the disappointment in conceding the second goal, which we'll come on to in just a second, at that time afforded us plenty of time to
Yeah.
get back into the tie, and I think a lot has to be credited to the players as much as there's going to be players we're critical of. From Thursday night, the overall characteristic of the squad is to be commended, because it would have been quite easy, given as we discussed last time and has been posted, the players by the media, we have that fallback of the Conference League for them just to go, well, we know we've got Europe anyway, but they knuckled down and got us very much
Yeah.
back to the tie. We're still in contention, and the possibilities for either outcome remain there for Thursday night. I just think that, yeah, on that right hand side in particular, with the changes, I know a lot of people were probably screaming for Nicky Devlin. I remember having to tell Ian why we couldn't bring Nicky Devlin on, because we'd already made the 5 subs by the hour
Yeah,
mark.
that's right.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think, yeah, that kind of cost us a little bit. It's maybe a little bit harsh saying that. Um, yeah, that inability to bring on some fresher legs towards the death when momentum was really with us. But
Hmm.
I think you also have to give credit to Jimmy Talleen. I mean, folk will be on here saying, well, you should be slagging him for not getting the right starting 11. Yes, there is an element of that. And hopefully he's learned that Sivert Nielsen maybe can be benched every now and again.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
3 changes at halftime, Leighton Clarkson, Knooster coming on for Dorrington, Sokler for Yengi. Did you maybe expect to see that sort of knee-jerk reaction from Jimmy at halftime?
It didn't surprise me to see a change or changes, but to have
Mm-hmm.
three took me aback a wee bit, I suppose. But 3 changes I was quite happy with, because, as I say, I rate Knooster very highly, and obviously coming back from an injury, it's maybe a bit of an ask to expect him to play the 90 minutes, but being able to integrate him back into the side, should have been a positive. Clarkson clearly offers, something that we didn't have in the midfield prior to his arrival, and um, in the case of Sockler, I mean, I think Yengi's race was run, and
Mm.
we were right to try and bring Sockler on and go about it in a different way. Just
So
based
Sokler's
on what
got
we'd
that
seen.
bit more mobility about him. I think, Yengi was very easy to defend from an
Mhm.
FCSB point of view. Nielsen, he was very lucky. Played an absolute hospital pass, trying to take a free kick quickly on the edge of our box. That ultimately he ended up recovering extremely well to block the shot. But a
Yeah,
couple of instances where I thought he was poor and rushed when he didn't need to be. But Leighton Clarkson has come in from come in for some criticism for his performance, but I know maybe one of the passes towards the end of the game which stick out because he passed it straight to an Fcsb player when there was
Yeah.
two of our own out wide. But overall, I think he had just as much impact as Dante Polvara did. He really took the game by the scruff of the neck and
Yeah.
controlled most of our positive play, looking to recycle the ball and start the attacks. So,
Yeah, that's right.
personally, I thought Leighton had a good game. Yourself?
Yeah, I hadn't picked up on the criticism that he'd received. I wasn't aware of that. And
Probably shows how much more I'm on social media in comparison to you.
aye, I do try and limit it, I have to say.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't say he was a standout, but the point you make is spot on, really. Because he does pick the ball up in quite a deep position more often than not. And he has got that ability to fashion long range passes and forward passes. Crucially, he can get things moving quite quickly. Yeah, of course, sometimes it's not going to come off, and it's frustrating when you feel like you've got momentum on your side and you basically just gift the opposition possession. But no, I thought he ticked along efficiently and nicely in the midfield. And as I say, you'll always see plenty of the ball just with the role that he plays. Which, as I said previously, he's not one that we've really got an equivalent of. He's got quite a unique role when he's on the park.
Yeah, I think he at least tries with what he's doing, and I think fans on the whole can relate to the effort that is being put in, and the willingness it is clearly there. Similar with Esther Sokler, he's always going to give all. Picks up a silly booking for dissent, although again not really surprising given the refereeing performance.
Yeah.
But Knooster, as you said, one of our best centre backs, but both him and Gav Malloy really not covering themselves in glory. I think this was also where some of the criticism was coming towards Leighton Clarkson. I saw someone blaming Clarkson for his role in the second goal because it was his pass towards.
He passed it back, didn't he? Yeah.
But I mean, really, any player who played that pass would have been fully expecting Gavin, if not Mats, to deal with that. And again, if the first goal was a horror show, I think the fact that Mats ends up tackling Gavin just adds to the comical nature of the goal. But at that point, when you're thinking you're playing against 10 men who are sitting in comfortable, trying to hold on to a 1-0 lead, the last thing you want to do is give them a second goal, and we literally did that.
Yeah. I mean, it was proper Hansen and Miller-esque, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But again, as soon as their winger burst through, you kind of knew the writing was on the wall for us. Just because they were really slick in terms of just capitalising on limited opportunities that they had to get bodies into the box, and we just gave them far too much of a head start. It's as simple as that. Between the first and the second goal, absolute gifts, really. So for Malloy to be involved in it again is unfortunate. Obviously, Knooster had just come on, so there's maybe an element of him coming in from the cold a wee bit, but it was a pretty basic sort of defensive situation that you would expect any of our defenders to.
Said, for that first goal, it's the lack of communication between that left side of defence. What was that communication? But gifting teams 2 goals, I think, for as much as we've said Dimitar Mitov had a quiet game, if it wasn't for his right hand, it could have very quickly and easily been 3-0, and who knows how important and how big that save could well be in the context of this tie.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's already been important in terms of turning the first leg around, because I don't think there would have been a way back from 3-0 down.
No.
But no, that was Mitov's big moment in the game. There's no doubt about that. Otherwise, it was quiet. But no, fair play. He stood up to the task there. I mean, he didn't really have a chance for the first 2 goals. So,
no.
it was good to see him come up with a big moment on an otherwise quiet night.
And I think also a testament to goalkeepers and their concentration levels, that when they do have relatively quiet nights, they can still stay switched on to moments, as we've just discussed. Unfortunately, not the impact that Jimmy was hoping with the 3 changes at halftime. With Fcsb scoring with inside 2 minutes of the restart, but the 2 other subs that he brought on in Graham Shinney and Dante Polvara did have a very instant impact. Dante grabbing the goal back, finishing very well on the turn in off the post. And you can't help but feel that cameo appearance from our American boy is really going to give Jimmy more questions than answers, because Richard Gordon was very scathing in his assessment
he was.
of Jimmy's favourite in Nielsen. And I really see why people think Richard Gordon's got a bee in his bonnet about Aberdeen just now, with how quite scathing he was on Sportsound on Thursday night. But Dante's answering those questions. Why isn't he featuring more regularly?
Yeah, because he always seems to just improve, not only who he's come on for, but the team in general. We just look a lot slicker and more dangerous when he's involved. He's got the full midfield package, really, from what we've seen. Player that's really improved over the time he's been at the club. And obviously there had been clamour for him to start earlier this season, but I think that impact on Thursday just went a step further in terms of really nailing it, the fact that he ought to be playing a starting role for us.
And I suppose Esther Sokler is also going to want to have his name in the discussions for starting, and he was lively throughout his appearance in the second 45. Again, listening to Sportsound in his interview post-match, he's annoyed at himself that he only scored 1. He feels he should be scoring more. I think there was a part of him that probably feels he should have been starting the game. When he was answering that question from Tyrone, and I think Tyrone asked for clarity if it was that he felt he should have had more minutes or more goals. But an impressive performance again that is going to give Jimmy something to think about ahead of Thursday night.
He definitely improved us from a danger point of view. We looked more menacing, and we looked like we had a bit of a goal sniffer in our ranks that hadn't been there prior in the game. So that would be the 2 changes I would make. I would certainly want to see Dante and Esther Sokler in from the start, because Yengi's had a decent run at it now. As we spoke about last week, I've not made my mind up on him yet in terms of dismissing him. Well, obviously, I'm always of the view with any player, we've got him now, so we might as well try and find the best way to get the maximum out of him, and that's true of Cassini Yengi. But
and I think as well, with Marko Lazetic not being registered for this tie, there may be the need to rely on him on Thursday night, whether that is off the bench or him starting the game, because we don't have anything else.
No. But just to go back to the original point, I would like to see Sokler given the opportunity from the start, because it seemed to just enhance our goal scoring possibilities when he was on the pitch. There's no doubt about that.
I think it's just, as I said, his general mobility. He hassles Harry's defenders. He's quick. He just offers something that Yengi at this moment in time doesn't. The second half, we create plenty of chances. I mentioned the Sclaff chance from Sokler. There was even a couple of chances at 2-2 that we could have nicked it late on.
Yeah.
As much as we're going to rue gifting Fcsb those 2 goals, how much do you think we could potentially rue some of the missed opportunities from Thursday night?
Yeah, obviously the tie's not won in the first leg. It would have been great to go over there with a lead, but based on what we saw, then there's definitely the potential for both sides to score again over there. I think it does have the makings of a really good European tie. So I wouldn't, obviously we could end up ruining it, but I don't think the task is markedly different, in terms of how we're going to approach it from here. Because even if we were leading it, I'm not sure if trying to kind of sit back and defend a lead going over to Romania would have been Jimmy's approach anyway.
No.
There might be an element of that. It might not quite be like the cup final, for example, but we will have to be a little bit more defensively streetwise, I think. I mean, that goes without saying,
Yeah.
given what we saw on Thursday past. But I think there's
I
probably
think
going
you're
to be
right.
the need for us to.
It does suit us not going there with a lead, as silly as that might sound to some people,
Aye,
but there would have been more pressure on us going into
exactly.
that game with a lead.
I think it's likely that we'll probably have to score in the game anyway, because I do see Fcsb, sorry, as being a team that possesses a goal scoring threat of their own, and I just want them to have to work harder to to break us down than they did last week.
I think that goes without saying across the probably whole Aberdeen support, that we want to see them actually have to earn.
Yeah,
If they do score, hopefully they don't, but if they do score, they have to earn it. I do share your same fear that I feel there's probably another gear that they are yet to find.
yeah,
I think they've shown enough from Thursday night that they are a quality outfit that can hurt us. Obviously, we assisted that in making life easier. They did play this weekend. They lost 2-0 at home last night. So every competitive home game they've played in this season, they've conceded. They've conceded 2 goals in 7 of their last 10 games. Albeit caveat from Thursday, their number 9 did not feature at all last night, and only 5 of the players that were
yeah.
involved on Thursday night featured.
Wow.
The V3 that didn't make it past Aberdeen Airport did all get game time, and I expect them to feature in some form on Thursday night as well. So
Yeah,
potentially some resting going on with one eye to Thursday, because for both clubs it is an excellent opportunity as it hangs in the balance.
yeah. I mean, I hadn't picked up on that, but is that a case of resting rather than injury concerns?
Well, I guess in
Or,
terms of the number 9, it's remains to be seen.
yeah,
I
I mean that would
suppose,
be a
but
huge bonus. I thought he was excellent. I thought he was really, really good. Probably the biggest goal threat on the pitch. Just a really kind of virtuoso centre forwards performance from him, given how little service he had during large spells of the game. So that would be huge.
it would be huge. And in terms of the second leg, you've already said that there's potentially another gear for FCSB to find. I think you could argue there's another gear for us to find.
Yes,
There's things that we could cut out that would improve us, the sloppy mistakes first and foremost, being a bit more clinical in front of goal when the opportunities arrive. That's not to also say FCSB passed up on a couple of golden opportunities themselves at Pittodrie, but there has to be, and I'm sure the players will have, belief they're going into Thursday night.
definitely. Yeah. I mean, for the most part, it was a really solid European performance. And as I say, it was just that made it all the more frustrating that two, really crazy mistakes put us on the back foot for such a long time in the game. Because there was a lot to be encouraged about, and obviously we've had a rest for, well, it'll be a full week by the time the second leg comes around, and from a confidence point of view, FCSB, suffering another, adverse result. So, from that point of view, we're going into it in a pretty good frame of mind, I think. Obviously carrying momentum that was generated late in the match, and I think it was crucial that we managed to claw back something that gave us like tangible reward for our efforts. If we put all that into the second half and come away with a 2-1 defeat, then yeah, as much as you're still in the tie, it just would have felt like an opportunity missed. So
I think as well, if you look at obviously ourselves and Hibernian, who will both be in action on Thursday, the pressure on Hibs is they have to go to Poland and score. We
yeah,
don't necessarily have to score on Thursday
no,
night to take the tie to the longest format. So there's a little bit of relief. And I think, again, looking at Thursday's game and their result last night, both games, they conceded 2 goals in the last 20 minutes. Similarly, before they came to Pittodrie, they conceded 2 goals late on as well. So potentially they get leggy the longer the game goes on. So the longer we can stay in the game, whether that be 0-0, 1-0 down, I believe there will be opportunities for us.
yeah.
How much do you think the fact that they maybe had a poor result, yes, and confidence draining, that will impact them ahead of Thursday, but also us not playing has given us a little bit of time to work on things, whether that be our defensive tightness, sharpness in front of goal. Anybody was carrying injuries, the likes of Shaden Morris or any knocks and niggles, have got a full week to recover.
Yeah, I think that from the injury point of view, that's important because it's an extra 7 days for Mats Knuster, for example, and obviously we await an update on Shaden Morris as well. So it'll enhance his prospects of being involved. Yeah, it probably goes down as being a good thing in the grand scheme of things that we didn't play at the weekend.
Yeah.
I know, obviously, we compared to other Scottish teams, have really lacked sort of competitive action. You do notice that in Europe, particularly the stage that we enter at.
Yeah.
That when you don't have that League Cup campaign, we've seen it a couple of times now that it can take us a wee bit of time to sort of warm our way into the season.
Well, we held our own regardless of the lack of competitive action, but I
Yeah,
think it's a fair point that potentially could creep up on Thursday if you want to look at that angle of it. I don't think that is to be neglected from the overall view of the game.
yeah,
But again, as I said, you've got to go back to the character and the mental strength. I think that the players have shown to pull themselves off the canvas at 2-0 down and give themselves 90-minute opportunity to get to that Europa League stage, group stage, whatever you're going to call it.
yeah.
How do you think though that Jimmy Tilleen approaches this game on Thursday in terms of mindset and formation? Does he go cup final formation? Does he stick to what he knows?
Well, no, I wouldn't quite go cup final formation. I think it will be something fairly similar to what we saw last week, but clearly with an onus on trying to be a bit more resolute. Just in addition to the point you were making there with regards to fitness and competitive action, that it's worth noting. I mean, obviously the fact that Fcsb were down to 10 men was a huge factor in it, but you'll
Yeah,
have noticed yourself just how out on their feet half their team was at full time.
yeah.
And
They're an old
clearly,
side as well.
they're what's the name?
They're an old side, as
Ah,
Sergio
yeah,
said on the last episode.
that's
They're
right.
not a
Yeah,
young team.
no, but they've also played an awful lot of football as well, because they were involved in the early stages of qualification for the Champions League.
Yeah.
And now this is their second tie in the Europa League. So that in itself has been a pretty, Thursday, Sunday schedule, all the way through, really. And that's maybe on the contrary, where, again, I think it's a good thing. We debated the merits or the drawbacks of not playing at the weekend, and I do, on the balance of things, think it's positive for us
Yeah.
to have taken that option. But yeah, I think it should lend itself to us again just trying to take a grip of the game, and it's not going to be a cauldron of atmosphere. It's no bear pit over there because from what I was hearing, the Romanians, I think their directors were we're speaking to our directors, and it sounds like they're only expecting to sell about 14,000, 15,000 briefs. I think that's in line with their average. And yet they play at, the National Stadium in Bucharest, which holds over 50,000, I think. So,
yeah.
you
And
know,
I think, still it's a healthy crowd, but I think also got to be credit, whether you're watching or listening, or if you're on your way to Bucharest just now and we're accompanying you on your journey, there's, close to 700, if not just over, tickets sold for the away end. And I think, okay, yeah, 2 weeks notice, but still with the guarantee of 4 games coming up later on in the year, credit to each and every one of you making the journey over to Bucharest, whether that be the ones from Dubai, here in Aberdeen, or wherever it is in Europe. I hope you all have a safe trip and bring back that spot in the Europa League stages as well. But yeah, I think great to see the Dons fans travelling in such numbers too.
Absolutely, aye. They'll get a good sleep on the flight if they're listening to this, listening to me for the couple of hours of a flight. I can't remember how long the flight was actually. I did it. I did Bucharest with Cali Thistle in early P&J days. It's the one and only European tie Inverness have ever had. So we had good fun over there. We lost 1-0 against.
I know how much you enjoyed your time in Bucharest, but we won't go into
No.
that infamous photo of yours in the pub
great trip
before anyone tries to add any unfounded context to that.
It'll be a great trip for the guys. Absolutely tremendous.
It will be. In terms of the lineup, you already mentioned there, Polvara and Sokler would be 2 guys you'd like to see start on Thursday night. Again, talk about potentially seeing Leighton Clarkson in there alongside Dante, Graham Shinney even at left back, given Gavin Malloy's involvement, let's call it. I'm not putting 100% blame for both goals on Gavin, but his involvement in the goals that we conceded. There's also a case in point for the team that finished the game on last Thursday to again restart this week.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of Graham Shinney starting at left back is clearly one that a lot of people don't like. There's obviously been a feeling that we should try and avoid that where possible.
Yeah.
But it has its advantages as well because clearly if you take him out in the midfield, he can be very effective in midfield, but we do have good options there. Polvara, Palaversa, Clarkson, etc. By moving him to left back, I suppose you're able to retain his experience and his drive on the park, albeit in a different role, in an area where, there's clearly as a result of last Thursday, there are question marks over Gavin Malloy, who, to be fair, I still rate highly, but I thought Shinney played well when he came on. A lot of our threat did come down the left-hand side in the second half.
Yeah,
and there were a lot of kind of switches of play that he was involved in to try and pick out guys at the back post. I think the guys on the right-hand side needed to be a little bit sharper in terms of getting into those dangerous positions. We saw it once with Keskinen trying to pull the ball back for Sokler, I think, didn't he? That had the makings of a lovely move, but again, that just needs to be a bit slicker.
And I would also say to Oshish as well in the midfield, again, for me, another good performance for him, but there's times when he just wants to do a fancy flick turn or hold on to the ball for that split second too long that I think at times in Scottish football you're not going to get potentially, but also on that European stage against a little bit more quality opposition, they're also going to see right through that as well. But I thought it was quite interesting from what you said last time about the time it will take for the front players to gel and click. We began to see signs of that in the second half, which felt a bit ironic given it was probably the front 4 that spent the least time together over the course of pre-season. They looked the most switched on, but look, whatever Jimmy Tilleen goes with, of course, will have the full backing of those certainly in the stadium. It will have the full question marks, I'm sure, from the keyboards of those of us at home or in the pub. But I'm trusting in the players and the management that they will give their all and hopefully see us over the line. And we've got a draw to look forward to on Friday, one way or another. If I had to push you right now, we're recording this on Monday evening. Do you think we're going to do it?
Yeah, I can see it being done through extra time. Actually, I'm going to make that a bold prediction. Maybe,
Not,
I mean,
not penalties.
could be penalties. I suppose we've got recent history of seeing that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I could handle that actually again. Mind you, I mean, I say that it was actually quite easy going. Actually, you know, the cup final as penalty shootouts go, I was relaxed as anything.
Yeah.
Given the quality of our penalties that day, but
Mm-hmm.
no, I've got a feeling it will go the distance actually. But in terms of extra time, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what a way to win it that would be. To be fair.
Yeah, it'd be a long night for those in Bucharest. I think it's a 9:30 kickoff local time, 7:30
That's right.
here
Yeah.
in the UK.
What do you
Do I
think?
think it'll go all the way? I think either way, it feels like the first goal is going to be vitally important. If we can get it, I think you've mentioned there 14,000 as a figure for the home crowd, who I'm sure will be getting restless as their domestic form is fallen off a complete cliff. And I think will really give us confidence. And like what we came up against last week, give us something to hold on to. Um, I have a niggly feeling it's going to be glorious failure. Hopefully not in the style
Yeah.
of Maribor. But yeah, I would absolutely love it if we can do it. And if we can, well, or can't, I'll be back live on Friday night, reviewing the draw for that group
Yeah.
stage and analysing the game in a bit of detail. So, as I said, obviously with some of the news over the weekend in terms of Phil and not being able to join us, we've been doing some pre-records, but hoping to join back for a live episode on Friday. So if you are a subscriber here on YouTube or new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, get the notifications on. We've also got a really exciting raffle coming up after the European draw as well. Very kindly, 2 tickets to the Legend Lounge have been donated for one of the European games. So stay tuned to the podcast for that involvement as well. And potentially 2 tickets for the main stand as well. So some really exciting things to raffle off, again, fundraising money for charity. So if that's Europa League or Conference League, stay tuned to our social medias for that. But Skinner, again, thank you very much for filling in and joining me on the show tonight.
Thanks very much, Glenn. No, I really enjoyed that once again. As I say, nice to reflect on a game that I'd been at this time. So, and there was plenty to go over there, and hopefully it's much the same come Friday for you.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed there's some more positivity, I guess, in terms of the result and obviously outlook towards Europe. Also, stay tuned for later on in the week. I recorded up an episode again this evening with Ross from the Falkirk Daft podcast. That'll be out on Friday morning. So again, audio or YouTube, get your notifications on and that'll be there. For those of you making that trip back from Bucharest or wanting some Don's content early on your Friday to start your weekend before the next episode on Friday evening. So until then, thanks for tuning in.